Select Committee Chairman Steve Bryan.
Thank you, Sir Robert. Thank you, John. Thank you. The Assisted Dying and Assisted Suicide report, which you referenced, the Health Select Committee, which I chair, it's tagged to this debate. We published it on the 29th of February. All members of the House received a copy of it from me. We received, complete coincidence, the government's response to the report just this morning. Honourable members can find that on the committee's website now. Our report is a pretty big piece of work. It includes roundtables from people who've got lived experience. We talked to health and care workers from across the NHS and social care, including people who on a daily basis actually provide care to people at the end of their lives. We went on a number of visits, including to Oregon, the US, where it's been legal for over 20 years, and to the Royal Trinity Hospice in Clapham. We received just shy of 68,000 responses to our online form, which is the largest number of responses of this type to any engagement from a House of Commons committee. We held 5 evidence sessions with witnesses from across the world, and we received close to 500 written evidence submissions. As we set out to conduct the inquiry, we were very clear that we didn't want to weigh in on whether assisted dying should be legalised or whether the law should remain unchanged. This, Sir Robert, seems to have disappointed just about everybody, which tells me that we got it just about right. And more importantly, in line with the terms of reference which we published at the very start, which just produced that weighty reference for MPs and peers to draw from in the future. Our aspiration was that Parliament would have a broad and well-researched basis for further consideration, whether that be sooner or later. Now, obviously, today's debate makes it sooner, but I predict it will come back again, and we can be crystal clear that this is a general debate today, not a piece of draft legislation. And I would just implore the campaign groups that encourage people to contact their MPs about this debate to just be clear and be accurate about what this is, because it isn't fair to mislead people as to what we're doing today. This is a general debate. Now, the government made it clear in their response to us this morning, including evidence to us that they gave, that it will not bring forward legislation in this area. More a possible change in law would be sought through a private member's bill, and indeed that's what's happened in other jurisdictions where this has become the law. It was very interesting in our report to look at the international jurisdictions, although I'd say the evidence is quite limited in terms of track record on this, because in the majority of jurisdictions that have this law, it is actually quite recent. In Oregon, which we visited, as I've said, they've had legislation for 2 decades. Now, their legislation comes in to the category where a person having an established terminal diagnosis means they were likely to die within a prescribed period of time, passing away within 6 months. In the Netherlands, however, the legislation applies to a much wider set of criteria, where the person seeking to access it can do so on the basis of unbearable suffering, quote, end quote, subjective to their own experience. And this is the point, as just made by the previous speaker. I take the rather old-fashioned view that MPs should vote to change the law based on a clear and concise understanding of what exactly it is we're changing it to. That is not the purpose of today. Just finally to say, we didn't find any evidence to suggest that the provision of palliative and end-of-life care had deteriorated in quality of provision following the introduction of assisted dying in those jurisdictions. Actually, some evidence suggested there's been an increase in the funding of palliative care services. So I think that is interesting, and I hope that colleagues will follow up the point that some have made, and in the opening speeches, is that there will be probably legislative changes elsewhere in the UK, certainly in the Crown dependencies in the coming months. The ministers do need to be ready to respond to that, whatever their intention for the law in England. So there is no time, as ever, to set out too much in these debates of 3 or so minutes. But I hope that colleagues will reference our report, and I look forward for the time that I can be here today to listen to contributions and the Minister at the end. Thank you.